If you could live anywhere in the world, just money is not an object here. What you would do when you got there, jobs, that sort of thing, none of that considered. If you could just find a place to live anywhere in the world, where would you live? If you could just pick a place out, a city or a region of the country or a foreign country, where would you live? And as you're thinking about that place where you would like to live, why would you want to live there? What is attracting you to that place? Is it the landscape and the nature around that area, the scenery, or is it the lifestyle of that particular place? Do you desire to live in a particular city and you like that city because of things that that city has to offer? Be it theater, be it fine dining, be it nightlife, or be it, opportunities in your chosen career field that you really, really want to be a part of, or the opportunity to be famous. Where would you live if you could live anywhere in the world, and why would you want to live there? And that's a question that our man in our passage today deals with. Lot is seen in Genesis chapter 13 and 14 selecting a place to live, and it winds up costing him dearly because his reasoning for selecting a place to live was not the right reasons to make that decision. He was making the decision based on what he thought would be fun and advantageous to him, and he was not including God in his decision. In Genesis chapter 13, we see Lot. He's Abraham's nephew, and so he's following Abraham around as Abraham travels, and he is following Abraham as Abraham follows God, and everything is going well until you get to Genesis chapter 13. And in Genesis chapter 13, there was conflict between Lot's herdsmen and Abraham's herdsmen because Lot had acquired a great number of livestock, and Abraham had acquired a huge number of livestock, head of cattle, flocks of sheep, and they've got so much livestock that they don't have enough land where they're located to be able to properly graze them. And so the disagreements over grazing pastures and water sources was leading to conflict between Lot's herdsmen and Abraham's herdsmen. And so Abraham has an idea. In Genesis 13:9, Abraham tells Lot, he says, "Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me, and if thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, I will go left." So Abraham is offering Lot a choice. He's saying, okay, I think we should separate here and move our herds apart, and that way there's no more conflict between me and you, between your herdsmen and between my herdsmen. So if you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left, and I will let you go the direction that you want to go, and I'll go the other way. And so that's the proposition that was placed before Lot in Genesis chapter 13 by Abraham. And so Lot, seeing his options before him, he chose to go to the plain of Jordan and to live in the city of Sodom. Now that's not really an option Abraham had placed before Lot. I've heard this story told many times that Abraham offered Lot the first choice and Lot took the better land of the plain of Jordan. But you have to remember that Sodom in the Bible was an exceedingly wicked city. And so Abraham was neither encouraging Lot to go live in that area, nor was he himself interested in living in that area. So Abraham was not recommending that Lot move to the plain of Jordan and live in the city of Sodom. Abraham's intention was to split and either Lot go north and Abraham go south, or Abraham go north and Lot go south. But the Bible says that Lot lifted up his eyes and he saw how good the land of Jordan was, that he was fascinated with the cities, and so he moved there. Genesis 13:10 and 11. "And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan." And so in these passages, you see Lot lifting up his eyes and looking at the plain of Jordan, at the valley around the Jordan River. And he sees how well watered it is, how much forage there is for his herds. And he sees those cities. And as wicked as those cities were, they must have been a sight to behold. Las Vegas, Nevada is a wicked city. But I imagine, I've never been there, but I imagine those lights on those casinos, those neon lights and all the flashing entertainment. I imagine that's a sight to behold. And so that's what Lot is looking at when he's looking at Sodom and Gomorrah, and he's looking at the plain of Jordan. And so he lifts up his eyes and sees how beautiful that area looks and how interesting and intriguing those cities are. And so he decided to relocate his herds to the plain of Jordan. And the Bible teaches that he pitched his tent. He pitched his tent towards Sodom. So he pitched his tent close to the city of Sodom. And the Bible says in Genesis 13:12 that Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain. So Lot not only moved his herds into the plain of Jordan, which there wouldn't have been anything wrong with that. What got Lot in trouble was his decision to live in the cities of the plain, to live in Sodom or to live in Gomorrah. But he spent most of his time in Sodom. The decision to move to Sodom, it cost Lot dearly. In Genesis 14, Lot was kidnapped by an invading army, and he had to be rescued by Abraham. He is barely rescued from Sodom by two angels as God is executing his wrath upon the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Those angels basically had to drag him out of the city. And that led to him losing his wife, his sons-in-law, and that led to a pretty egregious sin involving his daughters. There are lessons to be learned from Lot's downfall, and the first lesson is that conflict needs to be resolved quickly. There was no reason for the herdsmen, between Lot's herdsmen and between Abraham's herdsmen, there was no reason for those herdsmen to be fighting with each other, because Abraham was not a greedy man, and they could have come to a resolution fairly quickly as to what to do with the herds. Abraham took the lead role in settling the conflict, which led to Abraham's blessing, but it also led to Lot's downfall. Prolonged conflict always leads to bigger problems. Things had gotten so out of hand that Abraham saw no other recourse, no other possible solution than to part ways with his nephew. And if you let unresolved conflict go on long enough, eventually there will be broken relationships. The second thing we learn from Lot's story is the desire for earthly pleasures can lead to destruction. The desire for earthly pleasures leads to destruction. Lot looked down on the plain of Jordan and the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and he liked what he saw. The well-watered plains meant prosperity in the livestock business. Plenty of water means your herds are going to be well watered, and plenty of water also means lots of forage and lots of food supply for your herds. And so that's food you don't have to buy or pay for. So that lowers your cost of doing business, but it increases the health of your livestock, and that's always a good thing in agriculture. So he saw prosperity. And he looked at the cities, and he saw the people of the cities were living it up. He saw fame, he saw fortune, he saw fiestas, and he saw himself being a part of it. Oftentimes, we're attracted to the wrong things. We're attracted to earthly wealth. We're attracted to the high life. We want to go, by nature, our human nature draws us to where the party is. Why do so many people, so many small town kids, when they graduate from high school, where do they want to live? They want to go out to the coast, to Los Angeles, go to Hollywood, be famous. Or in Texas, they want to go to Austin and live it up at the big city of Austin and how great the lifestyle in Austin is. Some dream of country music fame, so they move to Nashville. And they want to go to these places. Why? Because it seems like life is great there. There's a lot that those cities have to offer. They can make it there. They can make a name for themselves there. They can get rich there. They can do all kinds of great things there. And so they're drawn there. We want to go to the places where we think that there is the high life, or there is pleasure, or there is opportunity to gain wealth. We want bigger houses. We want better neighborhoods. We want the amenities of big city life. And there's nothing wrong with living in a big city. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying the amenities thereof. But why are you there, and what are you worshiping, and where is your heart located? Where is your heart? Oftentimes we desire the praise of men rather than the praise of God, and that becomes a problem for Lot as those two angels show up in the city of Sodom. And he's sitting there in the gate. He was a judge in the city, so he had gained political success. And he's trying to get those two messengers, those two angels, in his house and locked up safe, because he knows that that's not a good situation for them to be there among all the men of Sodom. The result is, when we follow our personal desires and lust and desires for fame and fortune, we oftentimes leave God's will to seek those things. And when you leave God's will, that's when the destruction comes. The third lesson we learn from Lot's downfall is what the destruction of a Christian life looks like. Motivated by his desires, Lot moved to an ungodly city, and he moved to an ungodly city, and he wound up blending into that ungodly city. He was kidnapped by an enemy army that was invading. He was rescued by Abraham, but I can't imagine that being kidnapped was a good thing. That could not have been a good experience. When the angels show up to rescue him from the city as God is getting ready to execute his wrath upon the city, they basically have to drag him out of the city because his heart wasn't set on going, because his heart wasn't set on God. His heart was set on that city. He lost his wife. Remember the story of Lot's wife looking back to behold the destruction of the city, and she was turned into a pillar of salt. And Lot's witness, his testimony, was basically ruined. Lot is not known in scriptures as a strong man of God. And he's not known as a strong man of God because he allowed his desire for earthly pleasures to rule his life. If you leave God's will, all the earthly things you think you will obtain will eventually be lost. You will lose the fame and fortune that you seek. And even if you maintain it until you die, when you die, then you'll lose it. You will lose your witness. You will not be known as a strong person of God. You'll be known as somebody who was just like everyone else in town. And so there's a lot of destruction to be endured if you turn your back on God and you turn your heart toward the pleasures of the world. And God's people do this. Christians do this all the time. They decide to lay aside the things that they know they should be doing. They decide to lay aside their marriages. They decide to lay aside their ministries. They decide to lay aside the responsibilities of being a godly parent and just to pursue their own desires and to make themselves happy. But that happiness never comes because you cannot find yourself completely fulfilled by the pleasures of the flesh. So let's take these lessons that we've learned from Lot's downfall and let's put them into practice. First of all, don't let greed motivate you. Second of all, trust God for who He is and look forward to His kingdom. Don't be distracted by the things of this world. There's a lot to be said for Abraham because the Bible teaches that God called Abraham to go into a land that he had never been and to go where he didn't know he was going. And the Bible says Abraham followed God because Abraham believed God. By faith, Abraham, when he was called, he left and he went out. And God promised him an inheritance of the land. God also promised Abraham a son. And the Bible says when God promised Abraham a son, that Abraham believed the Lord and it was counted unto him for righteousness. But Abraham's faith was not tied to what God was promising to give him. Abraham's faith was tied to the idea of being with God in eternity, being in His kingdom. You read that in Hebrews chapter 11, that he looked for a city whose builder and maker was God, and he declared plainly that he sought a country and that he was a stranger in this land. And that's why Abraham lived in tents. Abraham had the financial ability to build a great house with a pasture that was walled in, that would have protected his cattle and his herds from the outside intruders and outside elements. He could have lived in a mansion, but he didn't because this earth was not his home. He was looking forward to eternity with God in the kingdom. Don't be distracted by the things of this world. Look forward to God's kingdom and eternity there. And in order to keep your focus straight, maintain a strong relationship with God. Thank you, and God bless you.